There is a golden rule in tactical chess: loose pieces drop off. LPDO. If a piece has no defender, it is a sitting target for every tactic in the book. Forks, pins, skewers, discovered attacks, back rank tricks, they all share one thing in common. Somewhere in the position, a piece is undefended. Today you learn to build your tactical radar. You will scan positions for loose pieces, see 4 classic examples of tactics that exploit them, and develop a habit that will win you more games than any opening you could memorize. LPDO stands for loose pieces drop off. It is the single most important concept in tactical chess. An undefended piece is any piece that has no other piece or pawn protecting it. Look at this familiar position. White has a queen on h5 and a bishop on c4, both aimed at the f7 pawn. Why is f7 such a juicy target? Because it is defended only by the king. No other piece backs it up. Compare that with the e5 pawn, it is defended by both the knight on c6 and the knight on f6. Attacking e5 goes nowhere because it has backup. But f7 is loose, and that makes it vulnerable. Now look more carefully. The knight on f6 is undefended. The knight on c6 is also undefended. That is 2 more loose pieces. When you have multiple undefended pieces in your position, your opponent has a menu of tactical targets. A fork could hit 2 of them at once. A pin could exploit the lack of defenders. The point is this: almost every combination in chess works because a piece somewhere is undefended. Your first job in any position is to count the loose pieces on both sides. Do this before you calculate anything else. Here is a technique that takes 5 seconds and will transform your chess. Before every single move, scan the board systematically. Start with your opponent's pieces. Go through them one by one. The rook on a8, is it defended? No. It is loose. The bishop on g4, is it defended? No. Loose. The knight on h5, defended by anything? No. Loose. That is 3 undefended pieces for black. Now scan your own side. The queen on c2, is it defended? No. It is loose. That is a potential vulnerability for white too. 3 loose black pieces on the board is a massive tactical alarm signal. Can white exploit any of them? Absolutely. Bishop e2 takes g4 simply captures the undefended bishop. Or knight f3 to h4 attacks both the loose bishop on g4 and the loose knight on h5 simultaneously. The scan took seconds. It revealed multiple targets. It handed white a winning move. Do this before every move, and you will stop missing tactics. Check your opponent's pieces, then check your own. 5 seconds. That is all it takes. Forks are the most common tactic in chess, and they almost always work because of LPDO. Look at this position carefully. Do your 5-second scan for black's loose pieces? The queen on c7 is undefended. The bishop on g4 is undefended. 2 loose pieces. Now white plays knight c3 to d5. The knight lands on a magnificent central square and forks 2 targets. It attacks the queen on c7 and the pawn on e7. The queen must move because it is the most valuable piece under attack. But here is the crucial point: when the queen moves, it can no longer help defend anything on the other side of the board. The bishop on g4 was already loose, and now with the queen fleeing, black's entire queenside is more vulnerable. The fork succeeds not just because the knight reached d5, but because the queen had no safety net. If the queen on c7 had been protected by, say, a rook on c8, the fork would still threaten the queen, but black's defensive task would be simpler. Loose pieces make forks devastating. Every time you see an undefended piece, ask yourself, is there a knight jump that hits this piece and something else at the same time? Back rank mates are one of the most common ways to win a game, and they rely entirely on LPDO. Look at this endgame position. Both sides have 1 rook. White's rook is on d1. Black's rook is on d8. They stare at each other down the d-file. Now ask the critical question, is black's rook on d8 defended by anything? Look carefully. No piece and no pawn protects it. It is completely loose. And black's king on g8 is boxed in by its own pawns on f7, g7, and h7. There is no escape square. The king is trapped on the back rank. White plays rook d1 to d8 check. The rook invades with check. Can the king go to f8? No, because the white rook on d8 controls that square. Can the king go to h8? Let's see, h8 is available, but actually the rook on d8 does not control h8. Wait. Actually, rook d8 is checked because it attacks the king on g8 along the back rank. The king has no square, f8 is controlled by the rook, h8 is not directly controlled, but actually the king on g8 has f8 and h8 as options, but f7 blocks f8 access from g8. Actually the king can go to f8, but can it? The rook on d8 controls the entire 8th rank. So f8 is attacked by the rook. kh8 is also on the 8th rank, also attacked. This is checkmate. Rook d8 is mate because the king has no escape from the back rank. The lesson, a loose rook on the back rank combined with a king trapped behind its pawns is a recipe for disaster. Always check that your back rank is safe. Discovered attacks are chess ambushes, and they are most lethal when they target loose pieces. Look at this position. White has a knight on e5 and a bishop on c5. Black's queen is sitting on a5, and here is the key, it is completely undefended. No piece protects it. Now white plays knight e5 to c4. When the knight moves away from e5, what does it uncover? The queen on e2 is now staring down the board, but more importantly, the knight itself lands on c4, where it directly attacks the loose queen on f5. The queen is under attack from the knight on c4. Where can it go? If it goes to a6, it is still vulnerable. If it goes to a4, knight takes on a4 is possible. The queen has to find a safe square while the knight has gained a powerful position on c4 for free. But the damage goes deeper. While black spends a move saving the queen, white can continue developing the attack. The discovered move gained a tempo because the loose queen was forced to react. If the queen on f5 had been defended by, say, a bishop on d8, then the knight move to c4 would still be good, but black would not lose a tempo saving the queen. LPDO is what turns a good move into a devastating one. A skewer is the opposite of a pin. You attack the more valuable piece first, it moves out of the way, and you capture the piece behind it. For a skewer to win material, the piece behind must be undefended. Scan this position. Black's queen on e4 is undefended. Black's rook on e8 is also undefended. Two loose pieces, and they are on the same file. That is a massive tactical alarm signal. White plays rook e1. Now the rook on e1 attacks the queen on e4 along the e-file. The queen is more valuable than the rook, so it must move. But when the queen steps aside, the rook on e8 is exposed behind it on the same file. White's rook captures it for free. The queen escapes, but black loses a whole rook. Why did this skewer work? Because both pieces were undefended. If the rook on e8 had been protected by, say, a bishop on f8 or a knight on f6, then after the queen moves, the rook trade on e8 would be even, not a free capture. Two loose pieces on the same line, whether a file, rank, or diagonal, should set off alarms in your head. Always look for skewers when you see that pattern. Everything we have discussed works both ways. You should scan your opponent's pieces for targets, but you must also scan your own. It is black's turn in this Italian game position. Before choosing a move, let's scan black's pieces for loose ones. The knight on c6, is it defended by anything? No. Loose. The bishop on c5, defended by? Nothing. Loose. The knight on f6, defended by the queen? Not directly, the queen on d8 does not control f6. So it depends on whether you count indirect defense. But essentially, the knight on f6 is loose too. 3 undefended minor pieces. Now white is threatening d4 to d5, attacking the loose knight on c6. If the knight moves, the bishop on c5 may also become vulnerable to a discovered attack. Black needs to address this. Moves like d7 to d6 shore up the center and indirectly protect things. Or bishop e6 develops a piece while adding a defender to the d5 square. The point is clear: before you execute any plan, check your own pieces. If 3 of your minor pieces are undefended, you are one tactical blow away from losing material. Defending is not passive. It is smart chess. Let's finish with a practice position. It is white's move. Run your 5-second scan. Black's rook on a8, defended by? Nothing. Loose. The bishop on b7, defended by? Nothing. Loose. The pawn on c5, defended by the d7 knight. The knight on d7, defended by the queen and bishop on e7. The knight on f6, defended by the d7 knight. The bishop on e7, defended by the f6 knight. So our scan reveals 2 key targets, the rook on a8 and the bishop on b7. Both are undefended. Now look at white's pieces. The knight on e5 is powerful in the center. The bishop on d3 points at h7. The queen on f3 can swing to the king side or pivot to the queen side. Can white exploit the loose bishop on b7? Consider d4 takes c5, opening lines in the center. After b takes c5, the bishop on b7 is even more exposed on the long diagonal. The queen on f3 could swing to b3 or a4, targeting the loose pieces. Or the knight on e5 takes d7, removing a defender and creating chaos. The scan found the targets. The tactic follows naturally. This is your homework: do the 5-second scan in every game, every move. Loose pieces drop off. Never forget it. Remember the golden rule: loose pieces drop off. Before every move, scan the board. Which of your opponent's pieces are undefended? Which of yours? When you spot a loose piece, ask yourself, can I exploit it with a fork, a discovered attack, a skewer, or a back rank threat? This 5-second habit is the difference between a player who finds tactics and a player who misses them. Train your tactical radar, and the combinations will find themselves.